Wakey, wakey, hands off, Snakey! The cock is crowing! Is a rooster a cock?
Yes.
Okay.
The cock of the walk.
It is time to get high on a new thing. Or an old thing. It is time for the latest edition of your Saturday morning hangover cure. That, of course, would be Sports Frenzy 2.0, the weekend edition. Sitting to my right is your Uncle Dave, the Conquistador Dave Height.
And to my left, your Uncle Kev, the Maestro Kevin Crane.
And why did I start off everything?
With the new thing?
Because we're starting off with rock and roll, and we're starting off with
cassette classics, baby.
This is where, because there is a, should I use a fancy term, paucity of new music
yes.
that's been out this year. We have, well, I give all credit to Dave, because Dave came up with a killer name for this. We're looking back at albums from our heyday, late 70s through the 80s into the early 90s, where they were overlooked. Were they overlooked classics? Was there a reason they were overlooked?
Right. Why did these particular ones not take off?
Right. They might be follow-ups to hit albums. They might be early albums, and later on the band found success, but why didn't the earlier releases really hit?
Or it could be a one-hit wonder, and why did the rest of the album not do anything?
So we've got, believe me, we've got a lot of these coming up throughout the summer. So you're going to love, love, love what we do with this. So this was your Uncle Dave's choice this week. So
yep. Thought we would go with Enuff Z'Nuff. Their first album did pretty well, had a couple of good hits off of it. Get High on a New Thing, and then
Fly High
Michelle. So here we have from 1991 their second album, Strength.
Yeah, and again, we're not going to review the first album because that was the one that was the hit album that had the songs you all know and love. That would be too easy. You know, it's not like we're not going to review Back in Black or 1984 or Appetite for Destruction. We're going to dig in and find these albums that slip through the cracks.
Exactly. And this is one, their second, did not live up to the first one, at least in terms of popularity, airplay. It just kind of, like you said earlier, kind of fell through the cracks.
I was kind of surprised, doing a little research on Strength, that everybody knows how much I love Rolling Stone magazine and how it drew my ire forever in its one-star reviews for Aldo Nova's debut album and Triumph's Allied Forces. Somehow, this album got 4 out of 5 stars on Rolling Stone.
Amazing, isn't it?
This was actually a very, very well-reviewed, well-received album back in the day. Everybody thought this album was going to keep the momentum going for Enuff Z'Nuff, yet it did not.
It did not. And 14 songs, just under an hour. I think I know why it did not resonate well. 8 songs over the 4-minute mark. 3 of those over 5 minutes.
Okay.
A couple of them may have gone a little too long.
I can agree with that. There were a couple times I looked and saw the run amount on Spotify and said, oh, wow, this still got another minute and a half to go.
Yeah.
I thought the problem was more too many mid-tempo.
Ballady.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the other issue.
Yeah, there wasn't enough rock and roll on this for me.
They were few and far between.
I didn't like a single song until track 6. I did like The World is a Gutter.
The World is a Gutter is my favorite song on this album.
Yes, that was the first one where I said, finally a good song.
Yes, yeah. That one, The World is a Gutter is my favorite on this album.
Now, again, we're juxtaposing, kids, our opinion versus what we just told you a few minutes ago. The critics actually love this album.
Yeah, and there's a lot I'm like, okay, it's all right.
Yeah.
But it's...
Yeah.
Most of it is all right.
Yeah. But yeah, you got a couple songs with piano, a couple songs with strings, and come on, guys, please. And this is the curse of the power ballad coming out of the 80s into the early 90s.
Yeah,
is that everybody thinks they can do Home Sweet Home or Every Rose Has Its Thorn. There's a problem there. Those are the only two really great power ballads that came out of the 80s.
Exactly.
Okay?
You have a lot
was
of crap.
okay. Don't Know What You Got Till You Gone was okay. And most of the other ones were just flat out embarrassing as hell.
Yes. And these were embarrassing as hell.
Now, here's what I was shocked by. So you and I both like The World is a Gutter. Now, they're not going to release that as a single.
No, of course
because
not.
the title's not going to work. Did you look this up? What the first single was off this album?
I did not.
Mother's Eyes.
Really?
I tried to listen to that a couple extra times, and I still couldn't get it.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything spectacular.
Now, I remember the second single, though. I do remember hearing Baby Loves You.
Yeah, that was the cheesy ballad, poppy ballad that would have gotten the airplay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember hearing that song before.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's the one I guessed originally that was the first single, and that turns out to be the second single after Mother's Eyes. Mother's Eyes, the problem with that, beyond just being a mediocre song, is that if you listen to the lyrics, it tries to be one of those, let's all love each other and not fight about anything anymore.
Yeah. It's
Towards the end, it got a little better. I did like Something for Free. I thought that was pretty catchy.
Something for Free was pretty decent. The Way Home, Going Home. Coming Home. I was torn with that one. It's another 5-minute song.
Right.
The first minute completely sucked ass.
The Way Home basically sucked. Yeah, because there's a very harsh transition.
Distinct.
Right, it's a very harsh transition between this piano ballady, The Way Home, and
which
then
is just abysmally awful, even vocally.
And then it moves into the much better, much harder Coming Home. But you have to take them as a whole because that's how they technically are, even though they feel like two completely different halves.
Yeah, and they are, and it's a 4.5-minute song. The first minute is just abysmal.
So you're starting to sound like you're coming along with wanting to be just the Hives. 2-minute songs, 2.5-minute songs.
Well, no, it's just they just drug on too much, and there were too many of them. The 3:30.
I know. I agree.
4-minute.
I agree completely.
The sub 4-minute is really where you want to be.
Yeah.
Unless you have something spectacular and outstanding, and you did not have something spectacular and outstanding.
Even a couple weeks ago when we reviewed Spin Doctors, and we both gave that a very positive review, there were a couple songs on there that we were like, do we really need 5.5 minutes of this? You could have cut that down to 3.5, 4 minutes. It would have been just fine.
Yep.
But that's self-indulgence, I guess, from these rockers.
Probably.
Yeah, I like the album closer, Time to Let You Go, was a nice little bluesy, simple ending.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. That, to me, kind of felt like a throwaway.
Yeah, but not a bad throwaway.
But not a bad throwaway.
But yeah, there's just too much. Long Way to Go was pretty good.
I was just going to say I liked Long Way to Go.
A little short, punkish
song.
I was expecting more of that. is what I was hoping
Yeah,
for.
more of the world is a gutter, long way to go.
Yeah.
Give us a little more upbeat. This was just kind of an overall meh.
Yeah. And I read again. I made a bad assumption where I assumed that was it Chips Enuff was the lead singer. He is not. Especially he is now, but back
Yeah.
then he was not. It was Donnie V. Was the book. I don't like his singing style at all. I just don't.
No,
I
it
don't
gets
like
a
his
little
voice.
grady.
Yeah.
It works here and there,
Right.
but not for everything.
Yeah. I think better songs, better material. I wouldn't have hated him so much, but with the songs and the slower songs especially, his voice does not work.
No, it does not.
Very nasally. Yeah, just didn't like it at all. I'm sorry. I had a hand in this because I was the one that said, well, let's go with Strength.
Yep, I gave you the option of album 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
And I was worried you were going to pick this one of what I'd listened to. I thought this was the weaker of the three
Well,
options.
that's true. You'd already listened to all three. And I wanted to go with the one right after the big hit album to see what happened. So now we know what happened. It's not that good, even though the critics seem to like it.
And we know why the critics liked it, because it wasn't all of that.
I can only give it, oh God, a week, 1.5 frenzies.
I was going with the 2.
All right. All right. Well, I already have my next cassette classic album picked out for you, so.
All right.
But it's difficult for me. There's so many albums I do want to listen to, and you always pick some really good ones that check off my list as well. But I do want to find albums that I don't want to waste our time with all of these albums that are subpar.
Yeah. So I probably should have said, let's do this one.
Yeah.
Instead of giving the options.
Yeah. Don't give me the option.
You're not getting the option anymore. I'm going to make the call.
Yeah. Well, again, I had good intentions. I was trying to look at the band's career trajectory.
Yeah. So, and that was a
and they've
valid
been around.
thought.
They're still around. They've
They
been
are.
around ever since the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So they've been around. Yeah, Donnie V is no longer with them. Like I said, Chips Enuff is now the lead singer. But, yeah, they after that first album, they have never achieved the success.
No, and that kind of lends in where they came in with the genre right at the tail end.
Yep, before it shifted to grunge.
Before it all went.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And so next week we're gonna take a break from albums. We're gonna do a bunch of songs. We'll do that fun little thing that you kids all love, where your Uncle Dave and I will independently rank 4 songs, and we'll compare and contrast to see
Where are we?
See how our individual lists compare to each other. All right, before we get to TV and streaming, let's do some news, because we got some very interesting news. Because the streamers, all the streaming services this past week made major announcements. Netflix did something, I can't understand this stupid, the Totem is what they call it. I don't know what the hell that is.
What the fuck is a Totem?
But that's kind of like their upfronts, their yearly upfronts, where they try to tell everybody when the big shows are going to premiere, what they've got in the works for 2026. So we have Stranger Things season 5 officially announced.
Yeah.
In 3 parts.
Yep.
Basically all 3 holidays at the end of the year.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's.
New Year's Eve, yep. So Volume 1 will come out November the 26th. Volume 2 looks like, even though they won't confirm, December the 25th. And then Volume 3, the wrap-up, the conclusion, on December the 31st.
Well, at least we know now, because now we all have enough time to go back, because we have to rewatch the whole fucking thing, because nobody remembers what's happened over the last 12 years.
That is true. That is oh so true. And then, of course, very, very interesting for us, because Dave and I love the crime dramas, love, the corrupt cops, those kind of things. The R.I.P. starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck as skeezy cops.
I'm intrigued by this one.
Debuting January the 16th, 2026. And then, of course, a whole bunch of trailers and announcements for premiere dates dropped between Netflix and Amazon Prime. We have Gen V. Now, the official premiere date will be September the 17th. The trailer is out. It feels a little too PC for me. I'm looking at the crew as it is constituted now, and I'm like, don't see a white guy in there. Nope. Pretty much all women. Much all women.
You had that vibe going for it originally, too.
I know.
You knew where it was going.
I'm shocked because Kripke didn't do that with Supernatural. You
no.
know?
He
hasn't really done that with The Boys. He's had a nice balance with The Boys. This seems it's a little bit over the top.
I wonder if there's undue influences for this one.
Shocking, Dave!
I know, right?
Then we have the first trailer for The Black Phone 2. That is out now. Squid Game 3, another trailer for that. That is debuting June the 27th. You still have to watch season 2, but you're going to wait, right?
Yeah, because this is 2 and 3 are all just season 2.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yep.
Quit bullshitting us.
Amazon Prime, new action series, Countdown, featuring, we just talked about Eric Kripke in The Boys. Jensen Ackles debuts June the 25th. Happy Gilmore 2, of course, coming out July the 25th. New trailer for that looks much better than the first teaser.
Yes.
Much better, much funnier. Frankenstein. Have you seen this one?
I have not.
Frankenstein coming out towards the end of the year, I believe November, on Netflix. Looks very good.
We will see.
And then, of course, December the 12th on Netflix, Wake Up Dead Man. Knives Out, number 3.
Looking forward to that one.
Those are always good. Those are always so good.
They do a nice job with them.
Yep. Then, of course, for my purposes only, because Dave's already seen it, reviewed it for you, I will play catch-up next week. As you're listening to this, go out on Amazon Prime Video, watch it now, because it just dropped on the 5th of June. That is The Accountant 2.
And if you haven't seen the first one, you got a beautiful double feature.
Yep. Of course, Ben Affleck and John Bernthal. First one was tremendous. I'm looking forward to the second one. Then, this is bittersweet, because we're going to have some news later on that pertains to this. Initially, I was very happy, and then something happened later on in the week that kind of dampened the enthusiasm, but full teaser trailer out now. It has been announced on Hulu. Their reboot of King of the Hill will hit August the 4th. Technically, it's season 14.
Yes.
Of King of the Hill. And can I just tell you, you'll get this. Most people won't. Do you know how much I loved hearing the Refreshments doing
Oh my God,
the
it was
theme?
brilliant. I loved it watching the trailer for it. There's a lot to unpack in that.
Yep. And I'll admit, I did not watch the last few seasons, so I had to read about what had happened. Now, could I can go back on Hulu and watch
You can.
all 13 seasons. Jesus Christ. Oh, I might dive in maybe towards the end, but I
Check
read.
out a few of the last
Yeah, to see
to
what.
see what's going on.
Yeah. So once we get to that point where your Uncle Dave and I start reviewing it, then maybe we will let you know, if you're like me and you did not watch the last few seasons, what had happened with Hank and his family. But I can't wait. I can't wait.
Loved King of the Hill.
Yep. And then a little bit of shocking news from the upcoming Comic-Con. Of course, Comic-Con is always huge for trailers and movie news and stuff like that. Coming up July the 24th through the 27th in beautiful San Diego, California. Marvel will be there, but they are sitting out having anything in Hall H, which is where they would normally have all their big movie announcements and
Right.
have all the big movie stars.
It's because they've canceled everything because they've screwed up so badly.
Well, Dave, that's a little harsh, don't you think? True.
True.
True, but harsh.
Little harsh, but true.
All right, so that will give me a transition here. Bear with me. For my movie review of the week.
All right.
I decided to catch up because it just dropped on Disney Plus. And you and your family, of course, graciously, a few weeks back, invited me to go with you to go see Thunderbolts.
The new Avengers?
So now I got to see the movie before that. Captain America Brave New World. So that means I've only got one movie left to watch to be completely caught up. God, do I really want to watch the Marvels?
No, you don't.
But I will tell you this. Pleasantly surprised by Captain America Brave New World. I actually enjoyed it.
Wow.
Not as much as Thunderbolts, but
it wasn't horrible.
This was a nice, almost a standalone Marvel movie. There are a couple things in it that loosely tie in to what's supposed to come. But here's what I'm thinking. This movie was stuck in limbo because I think they were filming this when they decided we can't go further with the Kang thing after Jonathan Majors got in trouble for domestic violence, and they said, we can't do this. We're going to have to scrap it and go in a different direction. And then the Thunderbolts kind of finally caught up, and at the end of that, in the bonus scene, they're tying into what's coming with Fantastic Four and beyond. But this one was basically more of just a standalone action movie.
Nice.
2 hours in and out, not a lot of worrying about mythology, that type of thing. It was very cool that it was about half and half in terms of tied into the Captain America stuff and then the Hulk stuff. So they actually go back and acknowledge that, yes, even though you don't think that it matters, the Hulk movie with Edward Norton actually, you people have to realize, is part of the MCU. Yes, it became Mark Ruffalo, who I can't stand with a passion, but
It should have stayed with Norton.
But this works very well. You get Sidewinder, again, we're going to talk about him in a few minutes, Giancarlo Esposito. And then you get a villain from the Hulk mythology who is manipulating everything behind the scenes. And it worked. It worked for me.
Cool.
Again, it's nice.
We've been debating in the house if we were going to watch it or not.
I think you should. I think it's, again, 2 hours in and out. goes by very quickly. The action scenes are good, not great. The new Falcon isn't irritating beyond belief like I thought he would be. There's also a little bit of a tie-in to the Black Widow saga.
All right.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very good. I would give it a solid 3 frenzies.
Oh, damn.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely
Alrighty.
enjoyed it. I will add it
Very
to
cool.
my Marvel collection when, Disney stops overpricing everything.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. But, no, much better than I thought. And again, a welcome relief from having to worry about thinking back to this movie or that movie or this movie. For the most part, you're able to just enjoy it for what it is.
All right.
It's your typical megalomaniac villain trying to get revenge and in along the way destroy the world.
All right. The usual.
Now you have a book review for us, don't
I
you?
do have a book review
The
this
Return
week.
of Literary Frenzy.
It's been a while. Things got going, and it took me almost a month to get through this one. But Grave Danger, James Grapando's 19th Jack Switek legal thriller. This is the only real legal series that I partake in for the most part. Miami criminal defense lawyer Jack Switek is married to an FBI agent. And they have the rule where they don't discuss their cases for fear of influence. And the rule at the beginning here is taking its toll on their marriage. They have a young daughter. And so they're in counseling. And she wants Jack to kind of go off in a different direction because the criminal stuff is wearing, and it's hard for both of them. And so Jack decides, sure, I'll lessen it and see what else comes up. His dad, the former governor of Florida, calls him and says, I got a case for you, not criminal. Talked over with your wife, should be fine. It's a Hague case, meaning there was a parent who took the child from a foreign country and brought them to America against the other parent's will without knowing. So basically, international kidnapping. And so Jack has to defend the wife who took the daughter. And of course, nothing is as simple as it should be, because the wife is actually the child's aunt. The mother was arrested in Iran amongst protests over headdresses and everything. Mass chaos on the front. The father's supposedly an abusive person. There's the State Department trying to work through his wife Andy to get him to stop trying to prove that the first wife was dead, and because they're trying to negotiate with Iran for the release of a hostage, and it's just one big ugly mess. And it was a slog at first getting into it, but the last half of the book, and especially the last quarter, really picked up steam. And one of the problems between Jack and his wife Andy is he's always looking at the conspiracy theory, and she's the government, I'm by the book, why do you see everything?
Yeah.
Question everything. She starts to question everything. And so there's a nice little coming together for them as they're working through stuff. So took a nice little twist that I wasn't expecting. I mean, I kind of was thinking along one way, but it shifted a little bit that I wasn't. because of the slow start, I'm giving it a weak 3, but it had a solid finish.
Now, you said you read all the series up to this point?
Yeah, I've read them all to this point. Okay. So it's a solid. He really hasn't had a clunker in here.
And then, of course, so other legal thriller, you read The Lincoln Lawyer. Is that considered a legal thriller?
I
or what
guess
is that?
it could be. I mean, there haven't been as many with The Lincoln Lawyer. There's just a handful.
Right.
So, but there's more of the detective side. So I guess there's 2. This one and The Lincoln Lawyer. I've tried Grisham.
So did I. Yeah.
Awful.
I won't go that far.
I just couldn't get in.
But there were a couple good ones, but then there were a lot of slow subpar ones.
Yeah, I just couldn't get into his stuff. There have been a few others here and there that I've tried that I just couldn't get into.
Yeah, no,
but I like the character development that they have in here.
I remember when I tried Grisham, and I've gone through about 4 or 5 of his books, and yeah, there were 1 or 2 that I liked. I think I read The Brethren, comes to mind, but yeah, I haven't read a Grisham book in 2 decades, probably at least.
So just not on my list.
Yep. Now, and legal thrillers are, I mean, I'm glad that these are good, but yeah, I'll stick with the detective stuff that we read.
These get more into the detective and outside. There's more outside the courtroom in here, like you get with The Lincoln Lawyer, where they're really trying to.
The police procedural.
A little bit in there.
Yeah.
But.
Now, of course, police procedural people will freak out when I say that because you start thinking of Ed McBain and the strict police.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going there.
Don't go that route. But, yeah, enjoyable.
All right, so we move on to TV and streaming. So Dave and I are kind of opposite right now on the 2 shows that we've got, and then we've got a lot more coming up here over the next couple of weeks, so it's going to get tricky. Yeah, it's going to get intense. So let's start off with what we've got, and then I'll fill you kids in on what we've got coming up in the next few weeks. So, of course, the 2 shows that Dave and I are watching right now, both of us are watching. I know he said he's just added another show.
2, actually.
2? You said 1, you bastard. Okay. So, Duster, which I'm ahead on. I'm up to speed on Duster. As you guys are listening to this, the 4th episode is out. I am caught up through 3 as we record here on Wednesday night, June the 4th.
Yep, and I have just got the first one in.
So, I've already told your Uncle Dave that I have my one big issue with this show. It especially at the beginning, and it does rear its ugly head again in the 3rd episode. I'm getting a little bit sick of the whole, we've got a black female FBI agent in the early 70s, and we keep getting reminded over and over and over and over again, you shouldn't have this job. Nobody respects you. Nobody wants you here. Nobody likes you. Okay, we get it. You're woke, you're PC, we get it. Stick with the story, because the story's really fucking good otherwise. Please, you're ruining what could be a classic.
Stop trying to make a statement.
You're ruining an unbelievably good show, at least through 3 episodes, with this garbage. We get it. She's black. It's the early 70s. There was racism. You guys are hitting us over the head with it like a fucking sledgehammer.
It's not needed. It's taking away from the overall tale.
And the overall tale is great. I will say that. So, if you can get beyond that, phenomenal. Phenomenal. It's a great mystery as we try to figure out who blew up a van.
Down by the river.
No, they did not kill Matt Foley. but it impacts so many different lives.
Yes.
We've got the father, played by Corbin Burnson, the brother, played by Josh Holloway, and how we look at, was the boss involved, was he not involved, because Josh Holloway, his character's working for the same man that the dead brother did.
Yeah. So who killed the brother?
Yeah, and they've done a really good job. Again, episode 2 will turn you on this. Episode 2 is a classic. It reminds me of a really good episode of Fargo.
Oh, nice. All right, there we go.
Definitely, kids, so far, again, put aside all the PC garbage, because you know a lot of these shows are going to force that down your throat. Duster is really, really good. And I love the opening credits, by the way, with the Matchbox cars.
Oh my God, that is brilliant.
Oh, awesome beyond belief. Awesome beyond belief.
Absolutely love that piece.
So what are these new shows you're watching?
All right, I watched the first episode of season 2 of Night Agent.
Okay, I've still got to watch that.
So started off, wow, it sucks you in, kind of like the first one did. And then another one, both of these are on Netflix. So Department Q is a British show. You've got the lone wolf detective, brilliant, but ostracizes everyone around him. He's the department asshole. Really doesn't give much away, but tragic beginning. And he has to come back, and he's offered this opportunity to start a new squad under nefarious pretenses by his captain. So now it's running him coming back, and then there's a focus on a female lawyer who's getting harassing texts and trying to prove that somebody who's guilty and loses the case while she's being harassed. And it turns out the cold cases that the detective is going to be working on, his assistant that he was assigned picks the cold case, which is her disappearance 4 years prior. So you see what's going on with her, same time as he's getting set up. You think, oh, okay, he's going to wind up... No, but to find out it's a 4-year-old cold case, is she alive still or not? So we'll have to see how the rest of the season goes. I'm intrigued.
Then, of course, we're also watching Poker Face. Now, Dave's way ahead of me on this.
Yep, I am caught up. I think more are dropping. As you're listening to this, we've got another 1 or 2 would have dropped. So
yeah, we're getting close, I think, to the end of the season already.
Yeah.
I just got through episode 2 with Giancarlo Esposito. Yes, there he is again.
He's everywhere.
He is very much in demand right now. But so far good. So far good. Something's missing, though, to me. Something from season 1 to season 2, there's something missing. I don't know what it is. The second episode, the one in the funeral home, just something about it. I don't know if they made it too easy for her to figure out.
Yeah.
It was still good. I still love the vibe, the overall feel of it, and I know your criticism.
If something felt missing in the first episode.
Well, and then you also said, how do they keep finding her? How do the people that were tracking her down in the first season keep finding her so easily through the first 2 episodes? Now, you obviously have got more info than I do, because episode 2 ends with Rhea Perlman basically showing up, and now we're going to see where that goes. I still like it a lot. I still love it as an homage to the old Columbo 70s murder mysteries.
I just got one question.
Yeah, there's a big difference from the first episode to the second. Justin, did you notice in the first episode how she consistently kept saying, "That's bullshit. That's bullshit. I'm a bullshit detector. That's bullshit." And she never says that in the second one. She almost did, and then she stopped herself.
Yeah.
Very weird how they shifted that, almost did a 180, and said she's not going to mention in the second one that her talent is she's a bullshit detector.
But it comes back.
Oh, I'm sure they can't
You
get
can't
rid of
keep
that.
it
No.
down.
No. But it's still more creative than 99% of the stuff that's out there.
No, they do a nice job pulling a mystery together.
I can't figure out if I'm attracted to Natasha Lyonne or not. There's times when I think she's kind of sexy, and times when I go, yeah, she seems a little too butch for me.
She's got that.
And I think that's what she is.
There's just a weird appeal about her.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not consistent.
No, it's not.
If you met her in a bar at 2 a.m, closing time, yeah, you're all in. 10 o'clock, I could do better.
Early on, probably not.
I could do better. Yeah. So sucking
There
on
you
her
go.
Vape. Yeah. Okay. Okay, babe.
Get over the vape. Come
Yeah.
on.
Now I do have a review. This was kind of a bizarre review because I initially thought this was going to be a documentary film when I first heard it was announced, and it ends up being a 2-part series. So it ends up being a 2-part series, each episode an hour and a half. So it's almost like 2 movies crammed into one long movie. This, of course, is Pee-wee as himself. As we look back at Paul Reubens and his life. And there are positives and there are negatives with this. Number one, obviously, 3 hours, probably much too long for a documentary about Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
That's criticism number one. It is definitely way too long. It ends interestingly. As you watch it, Paul Reubens, his behavior is very erratic. He tries to play mind games with the director. He's basically just talking into the camera, right?
Okay.
But he'll say things like, "Well, I could tell you about this, but do you really want to hear that? Do you really want to? I don't think you want to. Maybe I should tell you anyway, to unburden myself. Do I want to do that? No, I really don't." He'll do stuff like that all the time throughout this whole thing. And then at the end, they basically say, it's not a big spoiler, they basically do the whole text on the screen, and say, he refused to cooperate over the last few months. So, this is what we've got.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we all know the scandals. We all know what happened in his life.
Anybody heard any good jokes lately?
Yeah, I mean, we know that stuff. We don't really learn anything new about it. Very interesting to see all the famous people that moved in and out of his life. Phil Hartman. I'll tell you something. That might have been the most devastating moment in the whole documentary. Was how he talks about Phil Hartman and how much he admired him and how well they worked together. And then how Phil Hartman came on early on with Pee-wee's Playhouse. And then, of course, the scandal at the adult movie theater happened.
Yeah.
Phil Hartman turned on him. And they have an interview with Phil Hartman on a late night talk show talking about, I don't think a deviant should be near our children. And it was really disheartening to see that. Really, really sad to see that. I wish there were more moments like that in this. More revelatory moments, revelations.
Yeah.
So there's too much stuff we already know. Not enough new stuff. Not enough interesting new factual data to ponder. If you love Pee-wee's Playhouse and all that stuff, you'll enjoy this like I did. But just looking at it from how long it is and what you get out of it in the end, I can't recommend it. It's close, but I'll give it a strong 2 frenzies.
Okay.
If somebody had done some judicious editing and knocked it down to maybe a little over 2 hours, it'd probably be a much tighter, much better documentary. But 3 hours is just a lot to invest in this.
Yeah.
Knowing that we know most of this crap already. We grew up with Pee-wee's Playhouse. We know who was in it.
Yeah, it's...
So, it's just another example we talked about with Enuff Z'Nuff. The songs are too long. Excess. Sometimes it's better to edit, to cut, to keep things brief.
Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
There you go. All right. We move on, of course, from here to Moments of Silence.
Yep, we've got that for you on Spotify, Good Pods, Pocket Cast, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon, Audible, and iHeart Sports Frenzy, baby. And, of course, the UB2B.
He loves doing this now. Now he gets to mispronounce 2 of our platforms instead of just one. Don't forget to check out the Facebook page, of course, to find every link as well, along with all those other platforms Dave just mentioned. Links to each and every episode on our Facebook page as well. Now, coming up next week, before we get to the Moments of Silence, the shows we're going to start throwing in here along with Duster and Poker Face. Resident Alien, Season 4 is kicking in. I will be watching Tires, Season 2 with Shane Gillis. And then we will have Predator, Killer of Killers in terms of movies. That might not be next week, might be a couple weeks down the road.
We'll get to it.
I will, of course, end up at some point in time reviewing. I might not watch it live. We might have something going on. Might watch WWE Money in the Bank on replay, and I'll let you know what happened there. So I'm still planning on getting out to see Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning at some point. I'm actually rewatching.
It's been a Mission Impossible for him to get out there.
I am rewatching Dead Reckoning. So that's part of it. I want to rewatch Dead Reckoning before I get to The Final Reckoning. So I'm halfway through Dead Reckoning, so I'll probably have that at least for you next week too. And we talked about The Accountant. I will be watching that as well, The Accountant 2.
There we go. And I'll get to whatever I can get to.
There you go. All right, couple of moments of silence. I mentioned kind of a bittersweet announcement with King of the Hill. You know, it was great to hear that the reboot is now officially coming August the 4th. But terrible, terrible news. The death of Jonathan Joss, who voiced John Redcorn in the original series, and I do believe he did Jonathan Redcorn again in this reboot coming up.
They announced after he was shot and killed that they did have, I think, most of his lines already recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, but as Dave just mentioned, shot and killed.
A lot of conflicting tales. About
it
him.
could be a homophobic attack. There's talk of the house being set on fire before this.
There's talk of him having severely erratic behavior. So you don't know exactly what happened yet.
Yep. And that's usually how this stuff goes. If it was all cut and dried, we wouldn't need to keep people on death row for 20 years and let the legal system drag things out the way they do.
And did it really need to end in a shooting? Probably not.
Then, of course, people have kind of, just a little bit, I'm not saying completely, but a little bit, as the years have gone by, they've kind of faded away on the enthusiasm a little bit for MASH. And that's a shame, because MASH is still one of probably the 10 best shows ever on television.
Brilliantly written. Great acting.
And one of the linchpins, somebody who was with the show from beginning to end, was, of course, Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, the great Loretta Swit. Now, now, unfortunately for her, this was really the only role she was ever
this was
really known for.
Her big role.
But you get one of those roles, run with it.
Yeah.
You know? And
she did. And it's kind of sad timing, because she had posted a heartfelt thank you and remembrance to all those who had given their lives on Memorial Day. And then just a couple of days later, she'd passed.
Yep, so thoughts and prayers, of course, to the great Loretta Swit. And once again, I got no skin in the game on this, but if you have not watched MASH, what the fuck is wrong with you? You've got, this is a show you need to watch every season from beginning to end, the transition from the first group of actors to the second group of actors, the devastation of the death of Henry Blake. I mean, it's just... Sorry, spoiler alert. But if you that happened, what, 50 years ago?
Yeah.
Almost 50 years ago?
Almost 50 years ago, so come on.
Oh, by the way, Rosebud's a fucking sled. How about that?
What?
And Tara burns to the ground. Spoiler alert. Norman Bates is the killer in Psycho, not his mother. What other ones can I tell him?
Jimmy Stewart does not kill himself.
And we're giving you like a 30-year cushion here. We're not spoiling anything from the last 30 years. Finally, this one's personal for me. Valerie McAfee passed away. Now, a lot of people, she was in a lot of different shows. Big Sky, she was in.
Yep.
That was, what, C.J. Box, right? It was on for a couple years on ABC. Obviously not Joe Pickett. But I mean, she was in a bunch of other stuff. But the thing that pisses me off...
She's the character actress who go, that's her. And you always have, oh, there's that guy again.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, is she gets a little mention, as I read a couple of the obituaries in the press about her. And, you know, they're mentioning this, and she was in this, and for some reason, Big Sky. Big Sky was on for like 2 seasons.
Yeah, it wasn't that big of a...
but they're acting, oh, she was in Big Sky, and she was in a couple other bigger shows. Seinfeld. She was the woman that drove George crazy.
Yes, she
was.
With
the chopsticks in her hair and the papier-mâché. Papier-mâché! And you called my doorman Sammy Samuel! Yes, you are pretentious! God, that is one of the greatest episodes. And then Jerry's got to go, oh, you might know about somebody's papers? Important tax papers? When she commits herself. But, of course, she was supposed to do Jerry's taxes.
Right.
Oh, my God. It is such an unbelievable episode.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the Jerome. Yeah, I lost all those, so I'll just need the copies. Copies? There are no copies. Hi, I'm calling. I need to get a receipt for a computer I bought 12 years ago.
Yeah, no.
The brilliance of Seinfeld and the brilliance of Valerie McAfee. So,
Thoughts and prayers to her family and friends.
a little bit of a present here this week for Dave. Because he usually is dragging at this time every night as we approach midnight on Wednesday heading into Thursday. He's got to work. He's got
Long
other
days.
commitments. You know, we're supposed to feel bad for him because he was just drinking beer and eating burgers with a bunch of people at his church before we recorded tonight. So I'm supposed to go, oh, Dave, poor Dave. I got to feel bad for Dave.
Yeah, no, I've just been up since 6.
But luckily for you, Hollywood and pop culture did not give me enough. So we are actually going to break this
No
week
Dumases?
from the dumbasses of the week. No Red Foreman competition this week.
Ah, darn, we have no Dumases.
But we do have a last call.
I do not have a last call.
Of course, last call, if you kids remember from a few weeks ago, we mentioned we were going to bring this back, this feature from our
We're bringing it back.
cable access TV days, our very first incarnation. Literary Frenzy came from there. So what we're going to do, every week, either both of us, one of us, the other,
If we have one.
if we have one, is we're gonna have a little bit of a rant, a little bit of a commentary for a few minutes on a topic that really doesn't fit in with our reviews or our news or anything else.
Consider it an op-ed.
There you go. A pop culture op-ed here on the weekend edition. And if you haven't figured it out, we try to be a little subtle about it, but we have our studio here in Indiana. We are in Indiana, okay? The great Midwest, flyover country for all the douchebags in New York and California. And every time you fly over, I stick my middle finger in the air for you.
Yep, pretty much.
You pretentious asshats.
Speaking of pretentious ass.
But that's the problem. I can sit there and wave the middle finger in the sky gloriously as the jumbo jet flies over, but we've got our own problems here in the Hoosier State. Now, this is a little bit tying into sports, but bear with me. Really, it's more about entertainment. We all know, if you live under a rock, I'll let you know, the Indiana Pacers have made it to the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years. So that's cause for celebration here in the Hoosier State. Although a couple celebrities who call the Hoosier State home, or at least are legends, quote unquote, in the Hoosier State, are having a little bit of an issue with each other on how to celebrate.
One home state boy and one who played for the Colts.
Both very, very rich beyond belief, so don't cry for them.
Very opinionated, both of them.
Yes. So it really depends on which one is more your cup of tea. So I give you this week
Sammy or Dave? Oh.
another lost Sports Frenzy segment. And that would actually be good for this.
It would. Sammy or Dave would be more appropriate.
I was going to say, of course, the WWE grudge match of the week, but Sammy or Dave would work. Who you got?
Who?
Pat McAfee or John Cougar Mellencamp? Here is your story, kids, on Last Call. Now, there are multiple layers to this. This is why it's on Last Call. As we moved into the latter games in the series, it went 6. Pacers won, as they should have, thank God. so we didn't have to put up the insufferable Knick fans. By the way, who were the cause of all this? All the celebrities coming in from New York. And shame on the goddamn Pacer fans who obviously sold them their courtside tickets. That was the first cause of this whole issue, was that you go to New York to play the games, and you've got Spike Lee and Ben Stiller and Miles Teller and Timothy Chalamet all sitting courtside, right?
Yep. So
then what happens when they come to Indiana?
They get courtside once again.
So that's shame on us. The people who sold out
those tickets for the money.
So you've got all the New York celebrities again sitting courtside here at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana. So Pat McAfee is asked to say a few words before the game, and Pat McAfee has a tendency, like us, to be a little vulgar.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And now I love a little bit of smack talk, and of course he's also got the wrestling background now.
Right.
So he basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically shouted into the microphone, let's make these motherfucking New York celebrities feel as unwelcome as humanly possible here in our home, in our stadium. Not bad, not terrible, not bad. I don't have any problem with it.
No, because the New York fans are insufferable to Pacer fans, so why shouldn't Pacer fans be insufferable to Knicks fans?
So somehow, this little performance by Pat McAfee, again, keep in mind, he has a wrestling background. He commentates on Monday Night Raw for WWE. He's wrestled recently with Gunther. So, it's a little bit of a wrestling promo is what he's doing.
Yeah.
But of course, on his show on ESPN, he curses a lot, and we'll get to that in a minute. So anyway, John Cougar Mellencamp happens to be at the game. Now, John Mellencamp lives outside of Bloomington, Indiana. He is a big-time representative of the Hoosier State. But, let's be honest, he's a little prickly.
A little? A little?
Now, you and I saw him in concert a couple years ago, and we'd heard rumors and stories, actual factual stories,
yes,
that he was calling out people at multiple concert stops for being rude, not stop talking when I'm talking, stop talking when I'm performing, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to walk off the fucking stage and never come back.
Yeah.
So this is the man who decides to, not so subtly, even though he didn't name Pat McAfee by name, post on social media this little diatribe about
how rude.
Yeah. What happened to Hoosier hospitality? How dare we treat these New York celebrities like this? It made, again, a couple not so subtle, but subtle references to Pat McAfee.
Yep.
Basically, you'd have to be unbelievably dense to not realize he's talking about Pat McAfee. And again, a little bit of a hypocrisy here, where Mellencamp, who's rude as hell on stage lately, doesn't like Pat McAfee talking trash to the New York celebrity fans. Now all of a sudden, oh, you've crossed over into my realm. I'm a celebrity. You do not insult other celebrities because we're all brethren and we're all family.
Yeah, whatever. Shut up. Shut up and entertain me.
That's basically what happened later on in the week with Pat McAfee. Got on his show and had his own little rant about Coog, as he kept calling him. Hey, Coog! Pat McAfee went on a very, very vulgar rant about Coog.
Yes, he did.
Saying,
wow,
a direct quote, shut the fuck up. And I believe he also said, suck it, Coog, at one point.
Yeah.
And he basically implied, I know who you are, I know what you are, and I got a feeling we're going to be together in a place again real soon. So if you want to come see me, let's have at it. So now people can say, oh, he's just being that wrestling promo guy. Would it shock anybody, given John Mellencamp's overall demeanor, that McAfee does know some shit about him?
It wouldn't
and
surprise me.
McAfee knows he's really not a good guy, and doesn't need Mellencamp calling him out on social media for being disrespectful. So I guess in the end, in this battle royal, this cage match that we just had happen here in the great state of Indiana, despite the fact that I do lament a little bit the over-the-top stuff with McAfee, he goes a little too far a lot of the time.
Yeah, that he does.
Dave and I agree that the performers, the rock stars who are getting too wrapped up in politics and social issues for the sake of their longtime fans, forgetting them, forsaking them, being rude and obnoxious to them.
Yeah.
I will say 1, 2, 3. The winner this week on Last Call is one Pat McAfee.
Pat the Punter McAfee.
Although I will still stick by my guns to this day and say John Cougar had the coolest rock name ever, and then he decided to disown it.
Yep.
So
there you go.
Yeah, that's another black eye on Coug.
On the Coug.
So that's going to do it for Sports Frenzy 2.0, the weekend edition. We hope you enjoyed it.
We did. We always enjoy bringing this to you kids.
Yep, we already told you what's coming up next week. Don't forget to check out the Sports Edition.
Thursday mornings.
Yep.
Same places we rattled off before.
Yep. So hopefully you'll check out the Sports Edition. If not, we'll do this all over again in 7 days to get you through your Friday night disappointment, your Saturday morning hangover cure. Kids, we're always here for you. Your Uncle Dave.
And your Uncle Kev.
So until next Saturday morning, when we'll have to get the eggs frying, the bacon frying, you'll have
coffee brewing,
you'll have
slam
to take the aspirin. Until that time, say goodnight to the kids, Dave.
Good night to the kids, Dave.